We are in Zone 8B in Mississippi, for those of you that may not know. It is hotter than my husband doing dishes. It is hot out here. Probably the hottest I've noticed since being down here, and I'm Canadian and I like the heat. When you're used to the cold, when you come to the south, the heat is amazing. But this has actually been really, really hot. If you're new to our channel, welcome. We have a messy garden that's in multiple stages right now. There are things that have been planted in April that are dying off. We got things that we've planted in June that are still going, and we have things that we've just added to the garden and that are just getting their start. So it's kind of a complex mess over here, but it's my mess that I love. So welcome, and hopefully you enjoy this. Over here we have a wild Florida Everglade tomato plant. It's a cherry tomato. It's supposed to be super heat tolerant, and overall it looks like it's doing fine. It's not my favorite tomato though. They split really easy. They're not overly tasty, so it's not one of my favorites. This is our native plant section in the garden, just one of many in the entire yard, but this one in particular is placed right in the middle of the garden, and that's on purpose. And I'm absolutely loving this. This was my best thing in the garden. It's a little overpacked. I think I got a little bit too energetic with planting a whole bunch of stuff in here. This is the mountain mint, if you guys saw my video on this. I haven't seen a huge number of pollinators on it. There's one there right now though. So it hasn't been as popular as some of the other plants, but maybe that'll change as the season goes on. The Gara has been really busy. It's fallen over now, but this pollinator area has been a flood of activity. Now you can see, I don't know if you can see it here, but there is a bird waiting to get in right there. So that bird, this other mama bird or papa bird, is living inside of that tower right here, and in the top of it is a nest. They have babies in there. So if you saw my other videos, I got some super cheap little stands from Amazon, and then last year I planted butterfly pea flower in it. This year I planted green beans, and you can kind of hear them if you listen. But this season I didn't plant the butterfly pea flower, but if you look closely you can actually see that there are some in there. They seem to have come back from last year, but those are all green beans on them. So the stands are holding up pretty good. They can fall over, so I find myself having to fix them, and I'm particularly nervous about the one with the nest in it, of course. This is a section of the garden that we're redoing and doing a test at the same time. So this is a bogged down area of the garden. It typically in the early spring gets so much moisture that nothing will grow in here. So I switched it up and did a blue pool garden. And I've used blue pools in the past. You guys, if you've seen my other videos, you know that I have used up old pools through a funny story that I ended up with too many pools. Anyways, watch that video for that story. I won't put you through that again. But in here, I'm doing it all over again, but this time by choice. Next highlight is the corn. We are testing corn in a blue pool garden. Now this section's not quite complete yet. I still got to finish this off. I had the squash already planted, so once these squash are done, I'm going to yank them out, and then I have a blue pool that's going in here. But for now, we have corn growing in a pool. And I typically don't do corn because I don't really do well. I don't use I don't use any synthetic fertilizers. We use all natural fertilizers, and I just haven't done well. But this guy's actually doing pretty good, so I'm thrilled with it. We'll see if it actually makes some corn. It's kind of got a little bit of bug action going on here. We got lots of wasps around it, but it still looks pretty healthy, so we'll see if we get to make some corn. This mess of loofahs is 100% not planted by us and took over. But good news is we have an incredible crop of loofahs. And we do have some pumpkins growing in the garden this season. I plant a ton, but I only get a few because the bugs get really bad late in the season, so pumpkins need a long growing season. So I don't find they usually do super well, but I do have some, so I'm excited. I'll have some for decorating. It's a really good example of the transitions that are going on in our garden. So these guys are going to be coming to fruition here pretty soon. These are some funky different types of tomato plants. This guy's actually been here for quite some time, and he's almost done, but peppers do well in the south, so he'll continue to plug along for probably the remainder of the summer. And we have a new pepper plant in here. And then you can see here, wah, wah, wah. We have dead tomato plants and plants in general that need to get pulled, and this bed needs to be redone. So that's just a good example of how there are lots of transitions throughout the garden. So I've always had a row of these containers up here since very early on in the garden, but this year I doubled the rows and moved them from back much farther away in the garden to over here so that they get better attention. Anything that's closer to the house gets way better attention. And then I've turned this into Culinary Row. So the majority of all the stuff in here are herbs or edibles. There are a few things mixed in that might not fit the mold, but I think they all fit the edible mold, but they might not be herbs per se. I have some beautiful pearmint in here, some oregano that I've replanted from another area in the garden that wasn't working. We have, this is my absolute favorite mint. This is an apple mint, and I've cut it back so it doesn't look super nice or doesn't look like much right now, but it's an amazing pollinator mint. Like, it is just absolutely covered in pollinators when it goes to flower. So I love this one, not even for the mint, just for the pollinator aspect. There's some French tarragon in here, orange mint, and walking onions. These are great. Give them to friends and family. Not everything is herbs in here, in particular, like these are goji berries. But most of them in the actual cattle containers, these are actually herbs. They even have a bay plant for a bay leaf floral. To it is Malabar spinach and a tomato plant right in the middle, but the Malabar spinach is actually the main show here. The Malabar spinach is a heat-tolerant spinach. You can eat these leaves just like you would spinach, and you can grow it from seed, but I actually got a plant from a nursery. This is a grapevine that I added this season that I'm really happy with. It's actually my second attempt at grapevines in the South. This one came from Tai Nurseries. I think it's out of Tennessee. I'm really happy. I've actually been really happy with anything I've gotten from Tai Nurseries. They have lots of trees. Really good place so far. But this grape tree or grape bush has done quite well. It is a lady finger seedless grapevine, and I planted it a bit differently because I have killed the other grapevine in the past, and I don't think I was able to keep it like with the right moisture. I'm very guilty of either overwatering or underwatering, killing a lot of plants that way. So I did this one above ground so that the roots can go down really deep and get more moisture if it's needed, but it's above ground so I really don't drown it. So that's what I'm hoping I've done, and that's so far, I mean, it's lived a lot longer than the other ones already and grown a lot bigger. I won't have grapes, I don't think, this year. It'll probably be next year if I'm lucky enough to keep it alive. Container planted a bunch of tomato plants. We are testing out Trifle, which is supposed to be one of the best tasting tomatoes out there, and I want to see if that's truly the case. So we grew them in pots, though. I didn't want to put them in the garden. I want to put them by the house where they get a bit of evening shade, and then water them. I can control the watering really good because it's close to the house. So I'm really excited because this is the first time I've actually done a second crop of tomatoes and actually had a pretty decent supply of them. Like, already we've got some tomatoes showing up here. So normally I find the blight at this time of the year starts wiping them out so bad that I never see anything come to fruition, but these guys are holding up good. So doing it in a pot seems to be making a difference for me. You see more little ones coming in there. So I'm excited about them. That'd be great. And those are our pineapple plants. Next year we should see some pineapples. We do have one pineapple coming in. This will be the second time I grow a pineapple. We had one last year and enjoyed it. It was so super sweet. It actually came off of that plant, and now I'm waiting to see if that plant will still produce more pineapples. But this one is new and it's got a couple of little sprouts on it, but we're excited for that. Okay, we had to come out of the heat and into the shade of the porch to do this next part because it's just too hot out there. We're going to take a look at the seeds that I'm planting next. I already have some of them planted. Yeah, I can see my little wasp buddy. He'll be hanging around, floating around. But some seeds already planted and in the house. And we also have some seeds that we're going to get planted as we go forward. I have 4 different types of cucumber plants I'm going to put in the ground. 2 I'm going to try out. I've heard lots of good things about lemon cucumbers, so I'm going to give these 2 a try. These are both kind of a lemony cucumber from Baker's Creek. I'm going to try out Garden Sweet Burpless Hybrid from Burpees, and I'm going to do some more quick snack edible potted ones. I'm going to do them in the ground. I'll actually have a video on these guys. These are a variety that are good for containers, but we're going to plant some in the ground, and I'll do a separate video on them specifically. But we're going to plant these guys about 40 to 60 days for cucumbers, so I have just enough time to get one more batch in. As long as the plants can pull through the heat, I should be able to get one more batch in before we get our frost. So these guys are planted already and in the house where it's a bit cooler. I've got them under a indoor light. And this is Tango Celery from Haas Tools. Now, they did a video recently that highlighted a bunch of their fall plantings. I'd recommend going to check them out because I'm going to do 3 things from that video specifically that really interested me. And one was these celeries. These have a bit of heat tolerance to them. I've done celery in the past and had success. The only thing I have found is that you really got to flood celery in order to get that stalk nice and thick. And I can't keep up with the flooding of them. So we're going to see if these ones do a bit better for me. This is another one from Haas Tools, and also in their video, this is Twister cauliflower. So cauliflowers you need to cover at a certain stage in their process. This one will actually do it for you. So hopefully that helps. I normally do find that my cauliflower gets really spread out. I always thought that was because of heat and not ideal temperature, but we'll see with these guys. This is the last one from Haas Tools. This is Purple Magic Broccoli. This had some heat tolerance to it. I struggle with broccoli, and I assume it's because of the heat. Might not be, but we're going to try this version. This is another tropical spinach, which is kind of like the Malabar spinach that I showed you. This one is called Malokia, Giant of Bertrua. I don't know if I'm saying any of that right. We may be speaking Joanese, as I do that sometimes. But I thought it was interesting. I want to try it out. It says here, it's 45 to 60 days, a tasty, versatile, and extremely heat-tolerant leafy green of the Middle East and Africa. It's a tall, upright plant that will grow up to 10 feet. 10 feet, wow. One of the tastiest tropical spinach substitutes and can be enjoyed raw or cooked. The pods are also edible. So I like to grow everything once. So this is one of those things. I've never grown it. We're going to grow it. Last one, also from Baker's Creek. This is Dwarf Siberian Kale, a tasty Russian variety, produces slightly frilled leaves and top quality. I actually don't think I meant to order this. I really wanted just a regular kale, but now that I got it, I'm kind of glad that I did. So we're going to try this one, Dwarf Siberian Kale, and I like kale. I'm that weirdo that, I like especially garden kale. Garden kale tastes so much sweeter than grocery store kale for some reason. So the last thing I'm going to babble about before I go is just a plug for nature. This year in the garden, I have noticed a great increase in the nature in our garden area. I've had far more birds' nests than I've ever had. I've had far more bumblebees than I've ever had. Lizard, frogs, you name it. It's showing up, and it's all because of the little changes that we make that increase the natural habitat for them, the reduction of chemicals, and just creating spaces for them to exist that help them thrive. So if you're doing that in your gardens, I really encourage it. Take it up a notch, keep going with it, whatever that is for you. But making space for nature really makes a difference in your garden, and it'll pay off in your pollination. It will pay off in the birds eating the worms that are eating your plants. Like, I promise you, over time it will pay off. Awesome, you guys. Well, that's it for the garden. If you want me to do more garden talks, let me know. Put it in the comments down below. If you want less babble in my video, put it down below. I'm happy to take your feedback. Love to hear what you guys would like to see. Awesome. Be friendly. Be kind.